The movie begins in 2035, 10 years after the war with Kaijus took place. It has been 10 years since the gateway to the underworld was destroyed by Pentecost and Raleigh. Jake Pentecost recalls how his life has been affected by the brutal war between the Kaijus and human, and although humans had managed to win the war, it left destruction in its wake. The world is slowly starting to heal, but the coastal cities that are close to the portal in the Pacific Ocean are still reeling from the damage. These cities then became a hub for damaged Jaegers. Jaegers are robotic weapons created by the Jaeger program, which was being led by Jake's father. These were effectively used to fight the Kaijus. The war led to people engaging in barter trade. Oftentimes, people would trade Jaeger parts for things like food. The damaged or decommissioned Jaegers are kept in the decommissioned Jaeger scrapyard, where people like Jake would often break into steal parts. The trade for Jaeger parts has become increasingly profitable, and everyone wants to steal parts. One night, Jake breaks into the scrapyard once again with 3 men to steal a capacitor for them. They hold Jake at gunpoint so that he does not double-cross them, like he has done many times in the past. When they get to a locked gate, Jake informs them that the capacitor is inside, according to his radar. However, when he opens the gate, he finds that the capacitor is missing from its place. The men have been wary of Jake from the beginning, and are now ready to get rid of him at the slightest inconvenience. Before the men can shoot him, Jake tells them that according to his radar, the capacitor is still inside the scrapyard, which means that someone has gotten to it before they did. He immediately runs forward to chase the person with the capacitor, and asks the men to follow him. He soon outruns the men, intending to leave them behind and get away before they can get rid of him. Once he reaches the end of the road, the men reach him, and are about to attack once again when Jake pulls a lever which causes the floor to open up beneath them. Jake then locks them in and rushes outside, to catch the person with the capacitor before they can get away. There, he spots someone getting on their motorbike and driving away with the capacitor. Knowing that if he doesn't go after the capacitor, he might never get it back, Jake decides to follow the motorbike. By the time morning arrives, Jake finds himself in a small secluded Jaeger facility. He notices a young girl inside with the capacitor. He sneaks in and surprises the girl. He tells her that what she is doing is illegal, and if she is caught, she will be put behind bars. The girl tells him that she does not plan on getting caught, but she spoke too soon. Just then, the two of them begin to hear police sirens in the distance that seem to be getting closer to them. The girl, named Amara, jumps up and scolds Jake for leading the police to her. She then gets into the small Jaeger that she has made, intending to use it to get away from the authorities. She runs towards it, leaving Jake behind, but he figures out her plan and follows her inside the Jaeger. As soon as he gets inside, Amara tells him to get out. Knowing that she does not have time to argue, because the authorities have shown up outside her facility, Amara starts the Jaeger and jumps out of the facility. The two of them manage to outrun the authorities, but before they can celebrate, another Jaeger, one that is much bigger than their own, shows up in front of them. The pilot tells them to surrender and get out of the command pods, or they will be punished for operating an unregistered Jaeger. Amara raises her hands, pretending to surrender. Jake tells her that she is giving up too easily. However, just when the defense guard thinks that they are going to turn themselves in, Amara activates gas bombs that come out of the Jaegers' arms, causing their Jaeger to disappear in the smoke. Amara then steers the Jaeger away and launches it into the air, before smashing into a building. Just when she starts boasting about managing to get away, the defense guard spots them and tries to once again capture the Jaeger. Jake instructs Amara to climb up on the defense guard so that he can use a capacitor to electrocute it. Amara follows through with his plan, and they manage to temporarily get away, but the defense guard is much bigger than their Jaeger, and he knocks their Jaeger out by electrocuting them. The two of them are then thrown into a cell, where they begin arguing and blaming each other for getting caught. After a minute of arguing, Jake tells her to shut up and they fall silent. He then asks Amara why she built the Jaeger, knowing that it's illegal. She tells him that the Kaijus are going to return one day, and she wants to be able to defend herself. A while later, Jake is taken into the interrogation room, where a hologram of his sister Mako appears. Mako, who had once fought alongside their father in the war to close the Kaiji portal, has now become the head of the Jaeger program. Mako scolds Jake for always getting into trouble. She tells him that he has a previous criminal record, which is why he will not be let off easy, just because the two of them are related. She then tells him that he will be training Jaeger pilots and taking Amara along with him to train her as well. Despite Jake's protests, she does not give him a chance to reject the plan, and her hologram disappears. The next morning, Amara and Jake reach Shatterdam, the training facility for Jaeger pilots. Once they get off the plane, they are greeted by a ranger named Nate, a Jaeger pilot that Jake worked with before. He tells Amara that she is a cadet and will be joining other cadets for training. She is taken to her quarters, where she is introduced to fellow cadets. One of them, Vic, is not pleased to see Amara and gives her the cold shoulder. Cadet Jinhai tells her that Vic is only bitter about Amara easily getting into the training program, when it took her 3 tries to pass the test. That night, Nate talks to Jake about wanting to be in the same boat regarding the cadets. Jake does not take him seriously, but still agrees with Jake and tells him that he will agree with whatever he tells the cadets, because that will ensure he gets to go back home. Nate tells him that he might get to go home earlier than planned, since unmanned drones that can control Jaegers are in the works, which might put all of them out of work. The next day, Lewin Xiao, the owner of Xiao Industries, arrives at Shatterdom, along with Dr. Newton, the same doctor who drifted with a kaiju brain during the war. They are greeted by the army and the rangers, who escort them inside. Dr. Newton stops by and greets Jake, while praising his father. They are interrupted by Gottlieb, a scientist at Shatterdom. Gottlieb asks Dr. Newton his opinion on an experiment he has been running. He informs Dr. Newton that they can use kaiju blood to power thrusters in the Jaegers, which would allow them to be deployed much faster. Before he can explain further, Newton stops him and tells him that his plan will not work, without even considering his idea. He tells Gottlieb that soon, the drones will eliminate the need for Jaegers anyway. He then leaves when a guard informs him that he is being summoned by Xiao. She orders Newton to stay away from Gottlieb until her drones are approved by Mako. That day, Xiao gathers all the rangers, along with scientists and Mako, and introduces them to her technology. She tells them that they will no longer have to look for pilots who are drift compatible, and the drones will considerably decrease the number of rangers who lose their lives during their fights with the kaiju. When she asks everyone if they have questions, they begin firing one question after the other at her, since everyone has begun to fear that they will lose their jobs. When Mako and Jake leave the meeting, she tells Jake that she is still undecided about the drones, and does not approve of the technology just yet. He then tells her that he will back her up, no matter what decision she makes. The next day, Jake and Nate take their Jaeger to the Council Summit, where the drones are going to officially be launched. They are told to keep guard, while Mako arrives at the summit in a helicopter. Just when Nate and Jake form the neural connection, they are alerted of possible danger approaching. Suddenly, another Jaeger emerges out of the water and starts wreaking havoc, catching everyone by surprise. The Jaeger rushes forward, despite Nate calling out to it and telling the pilots to exit their compods, since they are operating an unregistered Jaeger. The Jaeger attacks Jake and Nate, catching them off guard. It manages to land a few hits before Jake and Nate get up and fight back. However, in the middle of the fight, the rogue Jaeger fires missiles. Jake narrowly dodges them, but he soon notices that one of the missiles has hit Mako's helicopter. He runs forward to try and catch the helicopter before it crashes, but he misses, and the helicopter crashes to the ground, slaying everyone inside. When Jake gets back to Shatterdom, he meets with Amara, who has been training to form a neural connection. She offers her condolences, and then tells Jake that she has been struggling to drift, even though all the other cadets have easily managed it. Jake comforts her and offers to help her. He wears the helmet and begins the connection. Several memories start flashing before their eyes, and Jake advises Amara to not latch onto any one of them. However, despite his warning, Amara finds herself sucked deep into a childhood memory from the time her parents were murdered by a kaiju. Her strong emotions as she witnesses her parents' demise causes their neural connection to break. Just then, Jake is called by Nate to meet everyone in Gottlieb's lab. When Jake gets there, he is informed that Mako left a message for them before her helicopter crashed. Gottlieb gets to decoding the message, trying to figure out what Mako was trying to tell them. Meanwhile, at Xiao Industries, Xiao tells Dr. Newton that the council has approved her project after the attack by the rogue Jaeger, and that she needs the drones ready in 48 hours. Although he finds the request outrageous, he does not say anything and tells all of the engineers to follow her orders. Later that night, Newton returns home, where he begins talking to a kaiju brain that he has kept encased. Then, he proceeds to drift with it. Back at Shatterdom, Gottlieb reveals that he has cracked the message by Mako. He tells everyone that Mako highlighted a location in Siberia where an abandoned Jaeger facility is located. When everyone begins questioning whether the message is correct, Jake offers to take his Jaeger to check the area out. He and Nate reach Siberia, where they find the abandoned facility. All of a sudden, another rogue Jaeger attacks them. A furious fight breaks out between them, with Jake and Nate barely getting the upper hand. Nate tells Jake to go for the rogue Jaeger's legs, so that they can end it. Jake does exactly as he is told, and then rips apart the command center to check who is operating the Jaeger. Much to their surprise, they find a kaiju brain inside it, instead of human pilots. They take the Jaeger back to Shatterdom, where Gottlieb analyzes the brain. He tells them that the brain does belong to a kaiju, however, it is different than regular kaiju, and seems to have been created by human beings. At the same time, Amara and the other curious cadets notice the rogue Jaeger. Amara insists that they go inside to explore, since the Jaeger is much bigger than what they have seen around them. Although some of the cadets protest and show their disapproval over going inside, they then tag along with the rest of the group. Once inside, they find everything covered with kaiju blood. As Amara begins exploring, she touches some wires, causing a drop of blood to fall on one of the cadets, causing his arm to burn. She immediately calls for help, and all of them are escorted away from the Jaeger. After a few hours of waiting, Jake comes out to find Amara. He tells her that the cadet is going to be okay, but because of her reckless decisions, she is being let go. Amara accepts her punishment, and tells Jake that she never felt like she truly fit into the program. He interrupts her and tells her that he felt the same way when his father was the marshal. He doubted his skills, to the point where his father had to let him go as well, but his father was gone before he could prove him wrong. He wishes her good luck and is about to leave when Amara stops him. She tells him that she noticed the rogue Jaeger was made up of material from Shao Industries. Shocked to hear this, Jake asks Amara if she is sure about this. When she confirms her findings, Jake rushes to find Nate and Gottlieb. He informs them about Amara's discovery, and the three of them form a plan. Jake asks Gottlieb to contact Dr. Newton so that they can stop the launch of Shao Industries drones before they can harm anyone else. Meanwhile, at Shao Industries, Dr. Newton announces that they are fully ready to launch the drones. They launch a few of them before Gottlieb bypasses security and finds Dr. Newton. He tells him about the kaiju brain controlling the rogue Jaegers and insists that they need to stop the launch. Just then, a few men from security catch Gottlieb and escort him and Dr. Newton out of the building. When they get on the elevator, the two of them attack the men and manage to get away from them. They then make their way to the lab and get everyone to leave by threatening to shoot them. Once everyone leaves, Gottlieb tells Dr. Newton to stop the launch. He watches as Newton presses a few buttons, assuming that he is doing as asked. However, he soon notices that instead of stopping the launch, he has confirmed the launch of all of the Jaegers controlled by the kaiju brains. When he questions Newton, he finds that during his drifts with the kaiju brain, the kaiju aliens had taken control of his brain and are now controlling him. Suddenly, Shao shows up at the lab and begins shooting at Newton. She questions how he managed to carry out his plan behind her back. He condescendingly tells her that she likes to think no one is smarter than her, which is why he was able to slowly take control of her company. Shao once again fires at him, but he manages to get away from her. Back at the Shatterdom, the kaiju-controlled Jaegers arrive at the facility. They immediately start attacking. Amara, who is leaving at the time, gets stuck in the chaos that breaks out after the attack. The rest of the cadets show up and take her with them. Jake and Nate show up outside as well, and are ordered by the marshal to get into their Jaeger and fight back. The marshal then goes to the command room, where he announces for all of the Rangers to get into their Jaegers and prepare for war. Just as he finishes his announcement, one of the kaiju Jaegers fires missiles aimed at the command room. This takes out everyone there. They then break through the doors of the facility and continue with their attack. While Nate and Jake try to come up with a plan, they are contacted by Gottlieb. He tells them that Dr. Newton is now being controlled by kaijus. Jake tells him to shut down the drones. Shao, who remains with Gottlieb, works on shutting down the Jaegers. At the same time, the kaiju-controlled Jaegers gather in the Pacific Ocean and begin reopening the portal that was closed during the previous war. At Shatterdom, Jake and the others wait helplessly and watch as the Jaegers eliminate everyone who comes in their way. One of the Rangers manages to take down one kaiju-controlled Jaeger, but gets crushed by the other one. Jake contacts Gottlieb again and asks him to shut down the drones before everyone is eliminated. This time, Shao overrides the system set by Dr. Newton and successfully shuts down all of the Jaegers, causing them to explode. However, despite their efforts, they are too late, and one kaiju was able to make its way out of the portal before it closed. The radar starts beeping, alerting Gottlieb of its presence. He tells Jake that a Category 5 kaiju has made its way out of the portal. Hours go by, and everyone at Shatterdom starts looking for survivors and tending to them. All of a sudden, one of the cadets notices aircrafts approaching them. It turns out to be Gottlieb, who has arrived with Shao and reinforcements. He, along with Shao, Nate, and Jake, gather inside his lab, where they try and come up with a strategy. They monitor the kaijus movement and deduce that they are heading towards Mount Fuji. At first, they are confused about the destination, but then Gottlieb reveals that Mount Fuji is an active volcano that is rich in earth elements that react strongly with the kaiju blood. This will create a huge explosion that will release a toxic gas that could cause all of humankind to perish. Nate suggests that they use Gottlieb's thrusters, that work on the same principle, to defeat the kaijus. Although Gottlieb's project is not fully developed, he jumps into action. The next day, the plan is initiated and everyone gets to work. The damaged Jaegers are fixed with the thrusters, making them stronger. Nate tells Jake that even though the Jaegers have been fixed, they still don't have pilots to operate them. Jake replies that they do have pilots and calls the cadets to step forward. He gives them a pep talk and tells them that it is now their turn to save the world. Everyone gets into position, and Gottlieb activates the thrusters. Everyone in the command room anxiously watches, hoping for the thrusters to work. To everyone's delight, the plan is a success, and the Jaegers are launched into the air at a much faster speed than a normal Jaeger. The pilots arrive in Tokyo with their Jaegers. They immediately take note of the kaiju that had been wreaking havoc in the city. They surround the Jaeger and one by one begin launching their attacks. However, the kaiju is simply too strong, and it easily dodges all the attacks. Jake and Nate attack the kaiju as well, but it returns the blow, only stronger. Gottlieb tells them that the kaiju is absorbing their Jaeger's energy and it's making it stronger. Jake then orders Vic to start firing bullets at the kaiju in order to take it down. She does as she is told, but it seems to make no difference to the kaiju. Dr. Newton, who is also in Tokyo, watches the fight and activates small drones that are also being controlled by kaiju blood. When Jake notices the drones, he orders all of the Jaegers to gather around. All of them watch as the small drones attach themselves to the kaiju and become a part of it, making it stronger. Jake orders everyone to attack the kaiju at once. Their attack does nothing to the kaiju, and it delivers a blow to the ground that causes all of the Jaegers to go flying back. While everyone is recovering, 2 of the cadets decide to go against Jake's orders and attack the kaiju alone. Not surprisingly, they are no match for the kaiju, and it grabs their Jaeger and throws them across the city. They go through multiple buildings before crashing to the ground. This causes one of the cadets to lose his life, while the other gets severely injured. Gottlieb informs the pilots that the kaiju has 3 brains, which is why, for them to defeat it, they need to attack in a specific area. Amara and Jake take their Jaegers and attack the kaiju once again, and manage to destroy one of the brains. This makes little to no difference, as the kaiju grabs one of the Jaegers and throws it across the city as well. Amara manages to eject, minutes before the kaiju tears her Jaeger apart. On the other side, Nate gets injured, and has to eject as well. With all of Jaegers down, a frustrated Jake tries to operate his Jaeger alone. Gottlieb warns him that operating a Jaeger alone may cause his brain to explode. Just then, Amara rushes towards Jake's Jaeger and tells him that she will become his co-pilot. Even though Jake is hesitant, he knows that he has no other choice. Xiao contacts the 2 of them and tells them that they have 1 thruster left, which they will have to use to defeat the kaiju. Xiao delivers the thruster to them using Scraper, the Jaeger that Amara created. She hands it over to them and activates it. The thruster drags their Jaeger upwards, but Scraper gets stuck to them. Jake tells Xiao to hold tight until they are able to land a blow on the kaiju. Their Jaeger makes it out of the Earth's atmosphere before the thruster runs out of power and shuts down. This causes their Jaeger to descend back into Earth at a much faster pace than they had hoped for. Not being able to control their Jaeger, Jake tells Amara to let go of her connection, since she cannot eject. As she lets go, Jake catches her and tries to eject both of them. However, their escape fails. Lucky for them, Scraper is still attached to their Jaeger, and Xiao manages to let the 2 of them inside it. They brace themselves for impact as their Jaeger descends to the ground, full speed ahead. Meanwhile, the kaiju makes its way towards Mount Fuji and is about to go in when the Jaeger slams into it and causes it to explode. The impact of the explosion causes Scraper to crash into the ground. Jake and Amara are able to escape unscathed, thanks to the feature that Amara had built into Scraper that would allow it to roll itself into a ball and avoid damaging itself. The movie ends with Dr. Newton getting ready to launch his Plan B, when Nate comes up behind him and punches him hard, causing him to lose consciousness.